So we're going to talk about the Google Maps. And what we found is that this is really the most important place, certainly to start. But even if you're spending a lot of money on ads, I mean, all the places are important. But maps for garage door companies are really a very key driver of leads. And so it's important to focus on it, and it's important to get things right. And it's one of those things where there's a lot of little things that you need to do, and there's some advanced things that you can do, but there's just kind of some basic stuff that if you do that and you do it consistently and you set things up correctly, it should work for you. And so we're going to talk about that today, about what you can do and what we see. Okay. And this is all part of, what thing we'll call an accelerated growth model. And if you're on the 2024 plan, it's a simplified version of there's just kind of an iterative process that you take to help your company grow. You got to drive leads. You got to make sure you're converting them, the best you can, increase your conversion percentage. And then look at what it's costing you. Look what your return on investment is. Decide where to invest more. And then that process that continues. So now you've got more leads. Make sure you're maximizing your conversion, optimize results. And that's what you need to do to accelerate your growth. And so there's various ways of doing each one of those things. You can drive leads from organic, you can drive leads from paid, you can drive leads from a database, which means emailing old customers or local businesses in the area. And what we're talking about today is really driving leads from what we would call organic. And that's just SEO. That includes traditional SEO, which you get emails about all the time, and it includes maps. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And again, this is just another picture of it. There's just a lot of slides here with all this info. So we're going to hone in and talk about maps. And what we want to talk about is the latest updates with Google Maps listings. I talked about that a little bit last month. We'll touch on that again just to make sure it's covered. We'll go over some of the biggest issues that can be preventing you from ranking in maps. We'll briefly highlight our proven model for ranking in the 3-pack, which in the maps is where you want to be. And if you're not familiar with that, think about if you're just on your phone and you look for a restaurant or whatever, you're going to get a result where a map is featured very prominently. It's going to be kind of ordered by proximity, and you're going to see some options near you with some reviews, with the average score and number of reviews. That's the map pack. Okay. And that's the gold mine for any local service provider, be it a restaurant, be it a plumber, be it a garage door company. From a local service perspective, it's all the same. That's the best place to be. That's where most people go. And so that's what you want to win. Okay, so we'll talk about how you do that. And then we're going to talk a little bit just about some of the tools that are out there that you can use to systematize this and automate some of the heavy lifting that you need to do well in the maps. Okay. So who am I and why should you listen to me? I wrote the book Online Marketing for Garage Door Companies. We've worked with dozens of garage door companies. I own and founded Garage Door Marketers. And not just garage door marketers, but I've been doing this a very long time. I've been running an agency since 2011. So you can tell by the gray in my beard that I'm not new to this. And the company that I've owned for a long time, I mean, we've got hundreds and hundreds of 5-star reviews. Got 2 locations. We've worked actually, when we looked at it, with over 33% of the countries in the world on 6 continents. We've just seen it all. We've been there for all the algorithm changes, all the changes to Facebook when you used to be able to run ads well, and now it's harder. So we've just been doing this at a high volume for a very long time. And Garage Door Marketers, I started because garage door companies have special challenges. And, it's a little bit harder, and I that's kind of fun. You got more difficult verification. That. And so, you're a group of service providers who really live off of Google, and in large part, certainly for repair business and things like that, but even other things. And Google makes it hard for you, and Google makes it hard for everybody. I hate Google. I think everybody does, but they control the real estate, so you got to deal with them. And I think what they make garage door companies do, while I understand it, there's some shady players, but everyone shouldn't be punished for that. But that's what we're dealing with. So we're here to help you with that. Okay. So the question is, do Google Maps matter? And you know the answer to this because you're here. And it really does. The data that we have on this is just, it's, there's no doubt. What other studies have shown is about 44% of the clicks and the calls go right to the maps. That's even when there's ads, it's even when there's LSA, even when there's organic, the maps just vacuum these up. And of course, it makes sense to you because if you think about how you shop, if you're looking for something, most people, and maybe not most, maybe slightly less than most if it's 44%, but you know what I mean, a plurality, look at the maps for who's close to them with a good reputation. And it makes a ton of sense. If my garage door is broken, now I have people I work with, but if I wasn't sure and my garage door is broken, I'm getting on my phone, garage door company near me, broken spring, garage door broken, whatever. All those things pull up maps that show garage door companies, and those who are closest to where I am have the best advantage. That's just the way maps work. But there's things you can do to stretch that, and we'll talk about that. Okay. So the answer is yes, of course, Google Maps matter, and they will matter until Google gets broken up, which would be wonderful. But then you'll have 50 different maps you need to rank on. So be careful what you wish for. But it's going to matter for the foreseeable future. And our data bears this out. So if we look at a snapshot over, this is like over a 2-month period, December to November, over 51% of the leads that came into our customers came from the maps, and about 34% came from Google Ads. Only 8% came in from organic SEO. And then the difference there is just other sources like Yelp and things like that. But between Google Maps and Google Ads, the vast, vast majority of inbound leads came from those two sources. And of those two, Maps was more important. So it's clear as day that Google Maps drives calls, and you can't rely on PPC alone. Now, at 34%, you shouldn't ignore it. You should definitely be running ads. But Maps is a big, big, big priority. And so let's talk about the biggest recent changes. And there's 3 that we've seen, and we obviously track this very closely because this is a huge deal. The first thing that we see and continue to see is proximity tightening. And what is that? It used to be in Maps, you could have a pretty broad range around your location. And what we've seen over time is Google is just shrinking this. And they want, what I presume the reason for this, if I want to be generous to their motives, is they see in their data that people tend to favor companies closer to them. So all of the things being equal, they're going to want to show their customers, the searchers, a garage door company that's close to them versus one that's on the other side of town, because they're going to want to call the people close to them. That's just how people are. And so they're making proximity more and more of a factor, which means it's harder and harder and harder for you to show up farther away from your address. What's the solution to this? Well, unfortunately, when you couple with how crazy they're being about verification, and they always have been with garage doors for years, but even more so the last 6 months, it's been really, really, really tough to get verifications. And they've been pushing increasingly towards video verification. And we used to have ways to get around that. And still sometimes you can, but really video verification is what you need to do. And what they're looking for with that video verification is that you have a physical location. And so the unfortunate answer is, if you want to vastly expand your maps, you're going to need to start having a plan to have multiple locations. Now, do you need to have a 5,000 square foot building with a huge part? No, of course not. It could be a little hole in the wall. It could be a closet with your branding on it. But you have to be able to do business there. You have to be able to show that customers can visit you there. That's why they do the video verification. Even though you're a service business, you go out, they're still need that video verification. Now, I'll defer to my team on this because they do this every day, but that's what we're seeing. That's what it looks like. And so in the back of your mind, if you're thinking, man, I really want more business on the other side of town, start thinking about where you could find a place you could rent for a couple $100, maybe $1,000. They're out there. But that's more and more looking like the model people will need to adopt going forward to expand their Maps presence as Google clamps down on proximity. Until Google figures out multiple locations and makes it worse. But this is the age-old offense versus defense, right? Get a better weapon, get better armor. That's what we're doing with Google. And now they've, got better armor. Now we need better weapons. And And this will continue as long as we get customers from these people. So that's proximity tightening. Number two is paid ads and map results. And if you've been watching Google for any period of time, you know this is their MO. And it's so annoying, but that's what they do. And so now that everyone goes to the maps, and maps is generally, I mean, you've seen little tests here and there where they'd put ads in, but now they clearly are invading the maps results with ads. And these are not special ads. There's no Google Ads Maps option. The way that you run ads and maps is by having a Google business profile connected to your Google Ads account. My team will correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way it was the last I looked at it. And so when you run ads, if you have a Google business profile correlated with it, your ads can show in the map pack. And Google's not pushing this more. And so this is obviously bad because they're not expanding the number of slots. They're pushing down organic maps results beneath these ads. And you'll especially see it if you go to more places where the first 2 or 3 spots might be ads. And so that's great for paid ads. What it's going to do is it's going to shift those numbers. When we had 34% and 51%, we're going to see that shift, more towards Google Ads a little bit as they continue to invade organic map spots with ads. So what's your answer to this? Well, you've got to be running ads, and it's got to be correlated with your Google business profile. That's just the way it is. I wish there were better answers, but the truth is what matters. Okay, and the third biggest change, which many of you likely experienced, is the Google review sweeping. I don't think they've done it in the last month, but certainly in Q3 and early Q4, they just started pounding reviews. We saw several customers across our verticals, the main company too, just get reviews swept away, legitimate ones too. And so they seem to have dialed that back a bit, but this is relatively new behavior for them. And so we would not be surprised to see more rounds of this happen. They may be testing frequency of review sweeping, but they're clearly going after old accounts. They're clearly going after age accounts with no activity. I think what they're trying to do here is keep their review content more up to date. I think in their view, it's a review from 6 years ago may not really reflect the current view of the company. They also have probably found that the vast majority of fake reviews are from aged accounts. And so they can kill 2 birds with 1 stone by forcing more recency on reviews and getting rid of as many fake reviews as they can. Of course, when they do this, they tend to throw out real reviews also, which is frustrating for everyone. And so what's the answer to this? The answer is you just have to get more reviews. You must have a system in place to consistently drive more reviews month over month, every customer, every time. You just got to do it. And many of you have a system. I know Service Titan can do this. There's lots of solutions out there. We'll touch on this a little bit. But it's one of those things where if you're not doing it, you will be left behind. And it is one of the critical factors in not only ranking well in maps, but getting people to click through. There's kind of a virtuous cycle here, or a positive cycle, where you get more reviews, more people click on you. Because more people click on you, you show bigger in the maps. Then you get more reviews, more people click on you, and it just feeds itself. So it's a sort of process where as you continue to get more and more and more and more reviews, you get more and more visibility. Because you have more and more reviews, you get more calls. And so it really is foundationally important now and going forward in the future to prioritize reviews. 1, to protect yourself when they do these sweeps, but 2, it is such an enormous ranking factor. It's one I don't see changing. And if you don't solve for this, you will be left behind, and it'll be even harder and harder and harder to catch up to the ones who are successfully doing this now. So if this is not a priority for you, you got to make it a priority. It's very, very, very important. Okay, so let's move along here. So what could be hurting your rankings on maps? So this is another thing where we do see some cases where some of the things that Google is targeting with their approaches are kind of self-inflicted wounds, things that shouldn't have happened and shouldn't have been done. And if that's happened, it can take some time to recover. So let's talk about a couple of these. The first one I already talked about. You really need an office in the city you are targeting to rank well on Google Maps. Now, Google will talk about it's okay to have a service area business, and that is true to some extent. And there are people who do it, and we have customers who do it, and we help them, and we are able to see them get results. You can rank with a service area business. So I don't want to give the wrong impression here. But what is clear as day in the data is when you plant a flag with an address, the proximity boost that you get is very big. And you just cannot replicate that with a service area business. You'll still show up on maps, but when you get into those very hard fought areas, it's going to be really tough to get in there because, as I've said a couple times here, imagine the person searching on their phone. If Google knows that you have an office nearby that person, you have a massive advantage, just massive. And now you got to get all your other things right too. But having an office, having multiple offices spaced properly, at least 15 miles apart, depending on the city. Like for New York City, might not be that much, but like for the average, medium to large city, not the metropolises, the crazy guys, but just think about how far your maps can reach and, draw a circle around it and make sure the circle of the next one doesn't overlap it. That's all it is. In a bigger city, that's going to be a smaller circle. In a smaller city or rural area, it's going to be a larger circle. So these are the things that you got to keep in mind as you do this. Okay. Office in the city, proximity boost, number one. Number two, have you tried to spam Google with fake locations? And we all know this is a problem in the garage door industry. There's some well-known bad players who do this. And then they invade the LSAs. And, it's curious how they do this. It almost makes one wonder if they have people on the inside because they seem to be able to skate around all the rules and get in there and do these shady things. And we can't control that. They will be caught up with and they'll fall off, but they hurt everybody when they do this. And it's just, it's not a good way to do business. It's not a sustainable way to do business. It's not the right way to do business. And if you're building your business for the long term, you kind of have to ignore the bad players and just do things the right way. And so, do not spam, obviously, do not spam Google with fake locations. Think about investing in real ones. If you're going to put technicians out there in that area, even if they work from home, see if you can find an office around there to get that proximity boost to help funnel in that work. That's the way these are the recommendations I'm giving to our customers when I talk to them. That's the recommendations I'll put out there is as you're thinking about locations, you have to start thinking about real estate. It hasn't always been that way, but that is certainly the way it is now. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. All right. Next one is inconsistent name, address, phone number, and profile. So this is one of those things that I go back and forth on. This was a big deal years ago. You'd hear people talking all the time, oh, you can't have bad NAP. You got to be consistent. You have one letter off, you're dead in the maps. So that's just simply not true. That being said, it's one of those things where you can get it right. So have attention to detail and get it right. Right? Don't mess it up. Make sure if you have an address, make sure it's the same everywhere. If you say suite in one place, don't say number in another place, right? Use the same phone number. Now, Google Business Profile gives you 2 slots, so it's okay to use tracking numbers. Just have your real phone number in the second slot. That's no problem. We've tested this with multiple people. It works fine. Okay, so just be cognizant of your name, address, and phone number. And if you have to change those, be aware that you need to change them across the internet, or you could see some impact on your maps, but smaller than they used to be, but still important. Okay, next one. Did you spam your city and company name or categories? This is more of an issue in the company name. So, any sort of spam or misleading or inconsistent information in your company name is very, very bad idea. So if your company's name is Joe Smith Garage Door Company, your name in your Google Business Profile that connects to that website should not be Garage Door Company San Jose. Don't do it. It doesn't work. You'll get suspended. And getting unsuspended and getting re-verified is a massive pain right now. So just don't do it. And if you have that set up now, I'd probably still change it while you still can, because if they manually flag you for it, not good. And then the last one, again, going back to having enough reviews. Now here it says across the web, Google does look at that, but Google reviews matter the most. So focus on Google reviews. Sure, Facebook reviews matter somewhat. Android reviews matter somewhat. All these things matter to some degree, but Google cares about Google reviews. because Google has data on Google reviews. So one of the biggest drivers for maps is these signals. It's signals from phones. Phones give proximity signals. They know where somebody is approximately. They know, all kinds of data about, the searcher, the query, the location. It's all keyed into these maps. And so when someone leaves a review from their phone, that's a rich data trove for Google, and your maps are rewarded by it. That's not going to happen on Angie or Facebook or anything that Google does not own. And so you always, always, always want to push Google reviews. But if someone refuses, try to get them somewhere else. But Google reviews matter the most. Okay. So these things could be hurting your rankings. And again, it's just getting the basic stuff right and not doing anything shady. That's really all there is to it. And doing it well will have benefits over time. Okay. So what can you do to get ranked in the 3-pack? Let's talk about that for a minute. We call this our proven formula for getting ranked in the 3-pack. It's pretty straightforward, but it works every single time. And this is it. So it all centers around, as you can see in the image here, it centers around your Google business profile. So you've got to do your business profile, got to get it verified. It's got to have an address if you have one. If you don't, even they're starting to crack down on using homes as addresses. So if you've been using your home address, don't mess with your profile, trigger re-verification, because it might not let it through. They're moving away from that. So be cautious, be aware that's going on. But so in whatever way you can, get your Google business profile complete, optimized, correct, even fill out hours you're open. I saw something fascinating recently. Companies who had operating hours received maps boosts when they were open. When they were closed, they disappeared. So you have to be careful. If you have a calling service or an on-call, so whatever you call it, an answering service, and you're open 24 hours, don't show that you're open 24 hours. However, if you don't and you're not and you don't offer emergency service, put your business hours, because it will give you a boost during your business hours. You won't have a boost during your off business hours, but if you're not answering your phones anyway, what is the point? The maps are event action driven. So that's a decision that you can make. Is it worth the trade-off? I think most folks have answering services. So generally you're going to want to be 24 hours, but just be aware there is advantage there. And again, all these little details matter. So having the operating hours there, having the your service areas, your categories, all those things, you want to fill it out as completely as possible. Got a question in here I will take about verification. So the question is, if you already have approved verification and you want to add more locations, do you need to start new approved verification again? I will have to check with my team on that. I believe the verification is location specific. However, when you add a new location, sometimes if you've just gone through verification, it will let that one through. I'll give you an example. If you were a bigger company and you wanted to add 10 locations at once or plus, there's something called bulk verification. And if you are an approved and verified account and you submit a bulk verification request, if the main one's approved, all the bulk ones will also get approved. So I think in this case, it depends on your specific situation. And the problem here is Google is not consistent. It kind of depends on the rep you're dealing with. You'll probably have to submit verification, or it might ask you, or you might, if you have like your Google Business Profile account and you add a location to it, it may just let it through. It may trigger verification for that new location. We haven't necessarily seen consistent things here from Google. They tend to be all over the place. It's not always clear what triggers verification. Sometimes they'll trigger re-verification for customers who've been active for years. We saw that with another customer, not in garage doors and in the old business. We see some wacky stuff. So I would defer to my SEO team on that. But the answer is, and I know it's not a good one, is it depends. So if you're already approved, I would just add that new location. It shouldn't impact your verification for your existing location. You may or may not have to do verification for the new location. I would tend to think based on what's been going on lately, that it will ask for verification and they'll ask for a video because they're being absolutely nuts about this. But I don't want to dissuade you from opening that new location if that won't happen. So I hope that answers your question. But verification is very tricky with these guys, and if they were clear answers, it'd be an easier thing. Okay, so carrying on. Take care of your Google Business Profile. Make sure it's well optimized, fill everything out, make sure everything's accurate, connect it to your website. That's all you need to do. Now, there are more advanced strategies here, which I'm not going to get into on this call. Generally, what I find with our garage door customers is you guys generally tend to be more savvy than average with respect to SEO and things like that. So I will tell you a little bit more here, which I might not always talk about depending on who's on my calls. And what we've also seen to be true is that you can treat the Google Business Profile almost like, I'll use the term money site. If you know what I mean, that'll make sense to you. If I don't, I'll just say, think of it like another website that you can build links to. And that's really what citations are, which we'll talk about next. But what we have seen that the maps are somewhat susceptible to link building targeting the Google Business Profile, but that's a little challenging. It's a little bit of a complex topic, which I don't want to get into here today, but just in the back of your mind, be aware, if you're looking for more things you can do, you can try building links to your Google Business Profile. And I'll leave it at that. Now, that brings me right into citations, which are links to your Google Business Profile, but they're more the standard, well-known ones, okay? And so those are local, those are name, address, phone links. So these are links on directories. Yelp would be a citation. There's hundreds of these directories. They've been there a long time. And you probably already have these built. They're way less of a factor than they used to be, but they are a factor up to a point. And so if, for example, if you have a new location, you're going to want to build a bunch of citations to that location to just create kind of a record across the web that Google crawls and sees that this is a real location. It's referenced in multiple locations. Here it is. Here's its name. Here's its address. Here's its phone. This is a location. It's a legitimate business. Here it is. That's citations. It's not something you need to stress over. If you had a location up for 5 years, you probably don't need a bunch more citations for it. But keep that in mind. If you're opening new locations, this is something you're going to want to focus on. All right, that's part one. Part two is local content. And there's a couple of different things here that I would talk about. Local content is content on your, number one, is content on your website that talks about your area. So one of the ways that Google determines if you are relevant to areas on the map is it looks at your website. And if your website does not have local content on it, then it's not going to be clear to Google that your website is relevant to that area. And so things that you need to do is build city service pages, talk about landmarks, talk about events, talk about things that are in your area that Google will be aware of that will signal to them that you as an entity, your website, your company is relevant to those locations. Okay, so that's local content one. Local content two would be things like posts to your Google Business Profile. These are things like projects, typically are the main one, especially if you can post them from job sites. So if your technicians, and this is tricky. So or maybe a supervisor or maybe yourself goes to a job, customer approves it, takes some pictures of the job there on a mobile phone and posts it to your Google Business Profile. That's a huge signal. And if you make those keyword rich, like, hey, had a broken spring here, did a garage door repair, this customer looks like here's the before, here's the after. The more content like that you can put out there in your Google Business Profile and on your website, that's local content. Again, Google Business Profile content from a mobile device with keywords is huge map signals. It will help your maps tremendously. But having it on your website too is also beneficial. So it's those two things. Work on those, get those together. That is going to help you rank in the map pack and expand your presence, especially where you're sending those signals. Okay. The third one is reviews. We've already talked about this. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but again, have a system in place to get reviews, get as many reviews as you possibly can. And just in your back of your mind, make this a key important thing that you're focused on every single month. It will pay dividends over and over and over and over and over again. Okay, got another question here. Should the citation links lead to the site URL or the map location? That is an excellent question. So I would say generally you're going to want it to go to, I used to say the site. I would say, you still want to do the website. You don't necessarily want to citation link to a Google business profile directly unless you have a ton of citations already. This is a little bit of a tricky one. I would defer to my SEO team a little bit here, but what I will say is, so number one, got to go to your website first, because typically, if you think about this from a user experience perspective, and that's the way Google will think of this, if you're on these directories and someone clicks on the directory, their expectation is they're going to your website, not your Google business profile. So you're going to want to link to the website. However, if you have multiple locations, the way that you're going to want to architect your website is to have multiple location pages. So you're going to want to have, your main website built around your brand. You're going to want to have a menu that says locations. And then each place you have a Google business profile, you want to have a corresponding location page on your website. And the website you use in your Google business profile, the URL of your website that you put in that Google business profile should match the location page URL on your site. So you should have, say you have 5 locations and you have 5 Google business profiles. Those Google business profiles should link to their respective location pages on your website. And the citations that you get should link, on average, at least initially, should link to your location page for that GBP on your website. Now, as I mentioned briefly before, you can build citations and other links to your Google business profile, but I would say that's advanced and proceed with caution. So it's one of those things where you want to make sure you have the basics in place, and you want to be a little cautious with citations toward the GBP, but you can do it. But let me explain it this way. You have pretty standard you have pretty standard citation sites. You have pretty standard directories. Those I would always point at your location page on your website. But there are ways that you can make NAP links, name, address, phone links, that are not on standard directories. So you can make, anything a citation link, because citation link is just name, address, phone. So you could build links in other ways, like say on a blog, say there's like best garage door company in the world.com. Maybe that's, I don't know, who cares? Just an example. Now that's not a directory, right? That's not a site. But if you got a link from that site that had your name, address, and phone number and linked it to your Google business page, that's technically a citation link because it has name, address, phone, pointing to your Google business profile. So that's kind of what I'm talking about there. I hope that's not too confusing, but that's how I would think about this. You got another question. If we get pictures and we don't have any for the town we want to rank in, can we take other pics and just change the location in the photo, the geotag? Hope that makes sense. Yes, it absolutely does make sense. And I would say yes, with caution. Make sure you do it well. So Google acts like it's so smart, but it's just a dumb machine following instructions, right? So you're just feeding information into the machine, and there are programs that allow you to modify EXIF data. And so, yes, actually, this is one thing that we would do, is we would take pictures and modify the geo data to make the location match where we want it to. Now, you have to be careful with this, but yes, that's absolutely something you can do, because again, it's just a machine. It's just reading fields in a database and causing algorithms to do what algorithms do. So yes, absolutely recommend that. Do it cautiously. But yeah, totally. The one caveat I would say there is make sure they're pictures that you own. And the reason for that is if you do that with stock photos and things like that, those images are well out there, they're well known. And so that might trip alarm bells in the algorithm, like, hey, wait a minute, we know this picture and we know it's not at that location. So if you took the picture and you just want to update the EXIF data or the geolocation data to make it show somewhere else, go for it. I would file that under advanced tactics, but definitely doable. Okay. So that's everything I got right now. Let's keep going. Business profile trust signals. So when we talk about your Google business profile, there are various things that Google uses to ascertain trust. And I don't want to go into this too much, especially because I don't remember when this slide was made, but they really have cracked down on the verification methods, and now where they really are pushing video verification. And so I don't know that there is necessarily a stack ranking of video verifications right now. So I don't want to talk about the verification method because they change that all the time and they make it difficult. Things that matter are brand authority. So again, having a brand, having it match your website, and using that instead of keyword stuffing, that's a trust signal. Again, total number of reviews, very important. Review velocity, also very important. So you don't want to go from 0 reviews per month to 1,000 per month. The algorithm doesn't like that. It knows something fishy is going on. Again, having a consistent volume of reviews will push along your results, and getting a fairly consistent number every month is what is called review velocity. So you don't want big changes. In other words, you don't want big review acceleration, the change in velocity, if you know your physics, because that might be a weird change. It might set off a flag. So you want to consistently have a decent number of reviews. Okay. Let's talk about recently unsuspended, actually good thing. So what this means is that your profile was suspended for some reason, and then it became unsuspended. That means that it was reviewed by someone at Google and was determined to be good. And so that's a trust signal because there's a marker in Google's database that says, hey, we reviewed this and this looks good. Okay, so that's a good thing. Although it stinks because it takes you down, it can hurt you, but if you go through the process and you show up, it helps you show up and be okay. Next is back-end engagement. So these are things like, I don't know about you, but I always get emails like, hey, are your businesses open on this holiday? I ignore them, but I'm also not trying to get local customers. If I'm trying to get local customers, I would answer those things. And so when you get those emails, make sure you say, yeah, hey, we're open. Let me let people know this, right? Uploading images, updating info, replying to reviews. This isn't talked about much, but when you get reviews, reply to them. Even if it's the same dumb thing you say every time, reply to every single review. That matters. Google looks at that. And if you're engaging with reviews, it makes you seem more trustworthy, and they will factor that into your maps results. And again, complete a profile, just do all the things, make up a store code. It doesn't matter. I don't think store code matters so much, but just fill things out completely, and just make sure that, you give them, they put these fields in for a reason. And so whether you like them or not, they're there, and I'd fill them out. And that's what we recommend people do. That's what we suggest. Another question, can you use photos that are geotagged from Service Titan and upload them? Or when you upload them from the office, does that change the location? That's a good question. So I think there are really two different locations in play here. There is a location that is embedded in the picture, and there is the location that they're uploaded from. I'm not sure. Okay, if you do it from a phone in the office, that location will be noted. It will not necessarily, I don't think it'll change the location information on the photo, but that's an interesting question. I don't think it does. I think there's different because the photo itself has this EXIF data, which is embedded in the photograph. And so to change that, you need to modify that with software. But there's a different location data, which is this was uploaded here. And so if you think about doing this on a job site, right? You take the picture of the job site, that picture has EXIF data from the photo. And then when it's uploaded to Google from a mobile phone, there's that also information that, hey, this picture was uploaded from this mobile phone. So in the case you describe, where it's geotagged from service titan and uploaded from the office, I don't think that it's not going to change the information on the photo, but it's maybe not as strong a signal as if it were done on a job site. That being said, I would still upload those photos from Service Titan to get the benefit of the, don't not do it because of that. But I suspect it won't necessarily have the same impact because the upload location is not. But I don't know the relative weight of those factors. I would tend to think that the EXIF data on the actual photo is a higher factor. But I don't think we have enough data to run tests to run a test and really understand that. So I would say take action and post things is a priority, regardless of what's being, how it's being counted. You'll get a benefit no matter what. Okay. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about local link strategies. So things like this, these would be non-citation links. As you think about how you can get links locally, think about things like your Chamber of Commerce would be one. Social media links are kind of count, but not really. That's a different animal. Coverage on local blogs, think local news, for example. Having a community event. I mean, just things you do locally that can show up on websites and link back to your site. You can probably think of 1,000 different things that'll do that. That's your local link strategy, is be active in your community, do things, do community service, do donations, do things, sponsor things. All of these will create local links back to your site, which will help your relevance in maps. Okay. And there's a bunch of ideas here. You can read these. I know it can be hard to do these if there's not a lot of time. So be creative, do things. I saw someone raise a hand. If you just want to go into the Q&A or the chat and leave a question, I can answer it. Happy to do that. Okay. Question is, so get those links and send to the location page or GBP. If we're talking about local links, either one would be fine. So, some customers have very strong maps that maybe don't need a lot of help expanding proximity. Some people are doing well organically. And again, organically is a lower priority. So it depends on your situation. Most people are going to link to your website just naturally. People don't really think about linking to GBPs. It's not natural. If you ask someone, hey, I'm going to do this scholarship, can you link to my Google? They're like, what are you talking about? So you're going to have a hard time getting people to link to your Google Business Profile. I would say if you need help in maps and you can get it, go for it. But if you can't, every link to your website locally helps you and will help you in maps. There's kind of a push through effect there. So I wouldn't stress that one too much. Okay. So moving on from links, claim and optimize Google Business Profile listing. You already understand this. I think we've already kind of gone over this. All I would add here is use a local number. Try not to use 800 numbers. And use a local address. Don't use a PO box. An important point here for getting new locations: don't try the UPS store. Google is wise to that. It's not going to work. I was able to sneak one through about 2 years ago for one of my businesses, but they've cracked down since then, and I'm not going to touch it because I know if I try to update anything about that, it's going to go into re-verification and they're going to nuke that location. So I would not consider anything like a UPS store, a Regis. I would not rely on those to get verified, because even if it got through into a verification, once you try to make a video there, that's going to get shot down. So the mindset really has to shift to real locations. And what some people are doing is they network with other business owners in the community, right? Make friends with some plumbers. So I always pick on plumbers. No reason. I love plumbers. They fix things I don't know how to fix sometimes. But you may have business friends who will rent you a suite and let you put up some signage in their location. Maybe they're another business that rolls trucks, and maybe they don't have a lot of customers coming, where you could arrange it so you could set up kind of a little space in their location, pay them a couple $100 a month. You're not competitors, so it doesn't matter if you're showing Garage Door Company in Suite 1 and their plumbing company, at the basic address. This is what we've seen some people doing with some success. So just an idea to do there. Let's see. We've already talked about all of this optimization stuff. So we got a bunch of questions coming in. Again, if you have a question, just drop it in the Q&A. I think you have that visible to you because I can't call on and unmute people. So I just rather take questions via the chat. So just drop questions in the chat. I'll take them there. First question is, do learn more links from business posts on social media platforms, Nextdoor, et cetera, count? I would say yes, but small. So social media links, because they're kind of ephemeral, they're kind of temporary. They kind of like social media is just like an ongoing, just constant stream of activity. They're just not as stable as a web property, if that makes sense. And so we know that Google crawls Twitter because, or at least it used to, maybe they changed that. Google has crawled these social media sites to the extent that things are public, like Facebook, they still do. And so links like that can matter, but because they're so temporary, they tend not to have a big impact. There is a trust element of it. Being active on social media, we recommend it. We recommend being active on Facebook more for more for your customers' sake, that they see you're active on those things. And there's a bit of a trust factor where if someone has a relatively up-to-date Facebook profile with activity, you look like a real business, and especially the younger folks who want you to text them, which is still super weird to me as an older guy. I don't want to text my business. That, like, my wife texts me, not like, who are you? Get on my phone. But that's not how the younger people are. Facebook is like that too, where, or TikTok, who knows? I don't even use that stuff. But having that presence, there's a trust factor there, not only for search engines, but also for users. And so it's valuable there. I think Google does crawl that to an extent, and it'll count for something, but it's not going to pop your maps. It's not going to pop your rankings in the same way. So I'd say it matters, but not a huge deal, if that makes sense. Okay, next question. Take a drink here. So, should we have one number across the web and not different tracking numbers in Bing, et cetera? That does not matter. And we have tested this, and this is really important. And so I will say, the reason this does not matter is partially because Google uses tracking numbers themselves. So when you do, for example, Google call only ads, they're sticking a tracking number in front of it there. So Google understands tracking numbers. Google uses tracking numbers. Google cares a lot about analytics and things like that. And so they do this themselves. And so whether it's because they know it's important or they just pragmatically know people are doing it, using tracking numbers is perfectly fine. And what we do for our customers is, and what we recommend for you if you're not a customer, is put your tracking number as your primary phone, but you still have a secondary phone, and put your local number there. Okay. So use tracking numbers. Now, what I would recommend is using local tracking numbers. So if you have a local number, use a local tracking number. Don't use a 1-800 number for a tracking number unless it's for a toll-free number, if that makes sense. So have your tracking numbers local. It's totally okay to use them. And think about it this way too. If you have multiple locations, it's not unreasonable to expect that each location would have a different phone number. They might be on different sides of the city. You're going to have different phones. You'll have different people answering the phone in different locations potentially. So it's not important to have one number across the web, except in the sense that, if you're publishing a number, that should be consistent, right? So when you're making these citations, use your real phone number. Don't use a tracking number. Okay. When you use tracking numbers, your real number is still visible in the code on the page, typically, certainly at least how we do it. And so, when Google reads the page, it's going to see your actual phone number there. Now, the number will programmatically be replaced by JavaScript or something to a visitor, but for the server that saw the page, it saw that real phone number. So there's still that consistency there, even if a visitor sees something different. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I got another question here. Or an office with a UPS box in front. I would say, and then there's another question, just touching back real quick. What constitutes an office? Can I just get a garage to store my stuff in and put a desk in it, or does Google prefer a legit office? So what I would say here is, and some of these are getting into the weeds, which is awesome. I love these questions. Thank you. Um, think about if you've gone through a video verification, what they want you to do. They want you to show the address, they want you to show the location, they want to see signage, they want to see tools. If you have a truck, now some people we've talked to, do subcontractor work, they don't want to put logos on their trucks. Buy a magnet, get a big old magnet, just slap it on that truck and video it, right? And then take it off. What constitutes an office is a place where you can put signage that's visible, that can be recorded physically and shown and demonstrated. So, and they might want to see the address. I again, I have to check with my team. If you have specific questions, you can send them. You can call us or do a quick call with us, and we can look at your situation. But reply. I've sent all these emails out. That's how you got this webinar. Just reply to the email with your question, kind of your situation, and we can take a look and say, here's what the video verification process entails. Here's more information. Happy to do that. So just respond to an email. It'll get to me. My team will show me. We'll look at that. But I would say anything that can pass a video verification constitutes an office. Okay. That's why things like UPS stores won't work, because if you get a UPS box or a PO box even, and you have to go video verify, where are you going to put your sign? Like, they're not going to let you do that. And even if you did, you're going to be filming, like there's going to be like postal workers there. There's going to be like UPS employees like looking at you like, why are you filming me? It's not going to fly, right? But if you get a garage, you store your stuff, you've got some logos there, you got some tools there, you got looks like a phone there, like they're going to test if it's plugged in, right? You make it look good, that might work. So it's a little tricky, but this is kind of the battle of GBPs right now, is how do I get a location that's good enough to pass video verification? Got another question here. I'll lump a couple in here. How far should the second location be for our garage door business? Again, it depends on your city. It depends on the proximity choke that's in your area. I'll use an example. I'll pick on Milwaukee, which is close to our home office. Milwaukee is like 1 million people, metro area. It's like the 50th somewhere, 50th MSA. So, it's a big city, but not really. Compare it to New York, right? New York is massive, right? In New York, your locations can be closer together, because there's no way in New York you're getting 15 miles. Just no way. There's no chance, right? That just intuitively makes sense. That's crazy. In Milwaukee, you might get 15 miles, especially if you're on the outskirts of the city. So there isn't really one answer to how far away. What I would say is, if you already have one location, look at your GeoGrid. We can run one for you. In fact, you can go to our website. I'm going to cover this in a couple minutes here. Run your GeoGrid for a garage door company, or garage door repair, whatever. Look at your GeoGrid. Where it's green, you're showing up in the map pack. Where it's orange, you're kind of in the more area. Where it's red, you're dead in the water. So look at the kind of radius that you have on your map pack. Maybe look at some competitors too. There's lots of tools at your GeoGrids. But get a look at your biggest competitors. Just look around at GeoGrids. Look at how far of a proximity they're getting and say, okay, well, I take that circle. What's the radius? I know I can't have my circles overlapping. So here's my circle. If I want another circle close by, then right in the middle of this circle, that's where I can put my next location, and look in that area. Okay. That's one. Two, just think about where the good areas are that you want customers. So, if there's a side of town that's high-end residential heavy, and you want to focus on installs and less service, try to pop a location in the higher end residential area if you can, and highlight your install business, your high-end garage door business. Okay. A question: can I have a private office with Regis? No. You can try it. I got it to work, but it's not going to work with video verification. So 2 years ago, I would have said, yeah, go for it. It worked for me. Now I would say, don't even bother. It's not going to work. Now, that being said, you can have one, you just won't get it in Maps. But I think you're asking, can I get it in Maps? So yeah, it's not going to work. Okay. Another question to follow up on the one number across the place. If you want to track your Bing traffic, that'll be a different NAP. I would say no, not so, because and again, so we use the software for our customers called What Converts. There are others out there, but that's what we use. And what it does is your phone number is hard coded in that page. And so when the Bing crawler crawls it and when the Google crawler crawls it, it sees your correct NAP. So it doesn't impact your consistency of citations to have a tracking number. That one tracking number, depending on your software, and I can only speak to What's Converts because that's what we use, that one software, that one tracking number, and we actually will assign like 4 or 5 tracking numbers per customer, because the way that it works is that visitor sees that tracking number and it's attached to a cookie that knows where they came from. And so it can support up to 4 or 5 visitors at once if you have multiple tracking numbers. And so that one tracking number will track multiple people across your site. And so it won't impact your citation NAP consistency, but it will allow you to know this visitor came from Bing, this one came from Google CPC or Google Ads, this one came from Maps, this one came from Yelp, and so on and so forth. Okay. Next question. What if location's out in the middle of nowhere? You should have pretty wide reach there, 15 miles, 20 miles. Really what you can do there is just expand out the geogrid and see how far you reach. But rural areas, you can go for quite a ways. And so if you're in a rural area, I would then look at population centers. You obviously want to target where the people are. But again, that's each case is kind of unique. That's why you want to look at the data. What is the purpose of primary and non-primary phone number on Maps? Also, which one should be primary? I have 2 numbers on the profile. The one I use to track is a non-primary. Should I change it? So that's up to you. It depends on if things are tracking properly. I think the danger in not using the tracking number as the primary is that people won't see it and they won't click on it to call you, and so it won't be tracked correctly. You know what I mean? So that's where we tend to put the tracking number as primary and the real number as the non-primary, so that people see the tracking number and call the tracking number. We do have customers who don't like that. They don't understand the tracking necessarily. They don't want to do that. And so they just insist that we use their normal number, which is fine. But then we say, look, the data, we can't give you all the data about how well things are working. So as long as you understand that, fine. It's your company, you do what you want. But this is what we recommend. So I would probably flip them, but beware, because any changes can trigger verification. And so, if you're tracking results and you care about accurate results, flip them. If you don't really care and you're kind of okay with how your tracking is right now, just leave it alone. It really comes down to how accurately is your tracking working and how accurately do you want it to work? And do you care more about customers seeing your real phone number? Different business owners have different views on that, and that's totally okay. Okay, this answers my question. Can you have a location and have by appointment only? That's a good question. I don't know that I've run into that. I would think so. If that won't get you past video verification. Any GBP verification right now is going to go through video verification. So I would say you can do that. You still won't get past video verification, most likely. But that's certainly okay to have people visit by appointment only. I don't know that we have the data on what kind of impact that has, but it seems to me like that would be okay. Question, can we open 3 new different locations at the same time? Sure. Absolutely. With the caveat that each one will be treated individually from video verification. They'll probably get approved on different timescales. You'll get different reps on each one. You might do the exact same thing for each one, and 2 get approved and 1 gets pushed back because the rep that dealt with it was unhelpful. So yeah, your mileage may vary, but there's no reason you can't. I mean, Google has a bulk verification tool for 10 plus. So they plan on some companies opening more than 10 locations at a time. So yes, it's certainly doable. Where do we go for the GeoGrid? You go to just our website, garagemarketers.com, and you can run it. There are, I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know if you can see this or not, but if you just do like, oh, grow grids is not it. I don't know if this is still showing my presentation or if it's showing my Google here. But if you just Google like GeoGrids local rankings, Local Viking does it. That's one that we use. Bright Local does it. Local ranking, SERP. There's a bunch of them. So just Google like GeoGrids local rankings, or like I said, go to garagemarketers.com. We have an embed on our site that lets you run one. It'll send it to you via email. Okay. Thanks for all the questions. That was awesome. Keep them coming. I'm going to keep moving though. If I see more come in, I will answer them. So I'm not going to go too long on this. This is going a little longer than I intended, but I'm glad to answer questions. So optimize the information on your profile. This just means be accurate, be truthful, be accurate, and be complete. Okay. Get Google verified. We talked about that quite a bit. Add photos. We talked about that. This is just showing places that you click to do this. You're probably already familiar with that. If not, Google made a big change from having an app and a platform to manage your Google business profile to now you just do it right in Google, which is kind of annoying if you manage a bunch of accounts, but it's easier for people who only manage one or two. So add photos. You can also, by looking at performance, you can see your insights. You can see like, how many people see it, how many calls you're getting. Are they up over time? Are they down over time? All these things. So keep an eye on that. This is one of the first things we look at. If we see a customer's calls going down, we diagnose it by, well, are their interactions down? If their interactions are down, why? We've seen a negative review tank people's interactions, which stinks. Now you gotta counteract that. So we watch this. I recommend that you watch this too. Okay. Best practices. So update your photos and add to them consistently. Posting updates 3 times a week is a good habit to get into. I know it can be tricky. Everyone's busy, but it will help. Respond to reviews. Very, very, very important. Easy to overlook. Even a happy review, just like, man, thanks for your business. Hope we can serve you again in the future, or whatever. Just say whatever you want. And then if people ask questions, which, I don't see a lot of that. Google pushes this. I think most of the questions and answers on there are probably done by marketing agencies for the if you want my opinion. I don't see it happen a lot. But if someone actually asks a question, go ahead and answer it. No harm there. So we talked about citations. I don't want to beat a dead horse. One thing I will say here is pay attention to aggregators. So there are a couple aggregators that will send your information to a bunch of sites. And any citation company will help you do this. Bright Local is one of them. That's one we use. We used to use Yext, but they're handy. But problem with Yext is when you unplug them, they unplug all your citations, which I think is kind of, I don't like the model. Bright Local lets you build locations. Moz Local I haven't used, but I'm familiar with it. Haven't used Device Local. I've used Whitespark a bit. So of these, I'd recommend, just because I've used them and I like them, Bright Local and Whitespark. We use Bright Local for our customers to manage citations and to do citation cleanups now. That's our solution that we use. Again, best practices, obviously do your Google business profile. And again, I would say one of the things that things like Bright Local do is they let you do a citation scan, and they will tell you how many you have versus your competitors. And so I would set up Bright Local, look in there. If it says you have 30 citations and your main competitors have 30, you're good. If it says you have 5 and your competitors have 30, build like 20, right? Just try to be on parity with your competitors. This isn't something that's going to help you a ton, but it is something that can hurt you if you're not kind of on par, if that makes sense. Lots of real reviews. We've covered this. Things you can do, leverage tools, leave a review card, ask your text to do it. I mean, everybody has different ways. We kind of recommend, if you can get your text to do it, great. Service Titan, I think, is a pretty good solution for this. I'm not sure. I don't have access to it. We have a couple that we do. we use something, our own branded thing called Reviews Accelerator, which basically you can upload a customer list with a name, phone number, email. It'll send out a couple emails, a couple text messages, which can be customized to just ask for reviews. And so we can work with our customers to help them customize what they want those things to say. Load up your customer list every week, and bam, you're done. So send your customers into it. You'll get reviews monthly. That's really all there is to it. There are many fancy ways of doing this. There's things like Nearby Now, where you can get text phones, and those are all awesome. But just do something. Even if it's when you email your invoice, however you do it, find a way to get that link in front of people and follow up a couple times. Don't be annoying. Don't be rude, obviously. But just ask a couple times, and some people will do it. Some people won't. But you won't get them if you don't ask. That's for sure. Another question, if I have a service area GBP in a city and I want to transfer to a physical location, I don't want to go just open another one because it's less than 50 miles away. Is it only going to need the video verification or something else too? So this sounds like you're just taking an existing GBP and adding an address. That might trigger a verification, but it will probably only require a video verification. Sometimes they'll want more documentation. I would defer to my team on this. Kai handles this for us for Google Business Profiles. Sometimes they want business documents that show the address. They might want utilities. They might want incorporate like business incorporation documents. So it might be more, but that's the sort of thing too, where you could just shoot us an email and with your details, and I'll just, hey, Kai, tell me what the answer is here, and he'll tell me. So it depends on your situation, but typically anything like an address change or a name change is going to trigger a re-verification. And it seems like right now they're asking a lot for video verifications. Not necessarily more than that, but they're weird, and sometimes they do weird things. Okay. So how do 4 to 5 star reviews help? They obviously help with people being aware of you and trusting you. But if they're full of rich content, they do help your maps. That's the only thing I would say here. So if a review has pictures, has keywords like, hey, at a broken spring, they came out to repair it. They were really fast, did a great job. It was clean and fat, blah, whatever. All those things matter. It's hard to coach your customers to put those things in there, but those things help. So reviews are just, if nothing else you remember from today, get more reviews. It helps everything work better. I'm not going to go into this, but on-site optimization matters. So this goes to local content on your site. Make sure you have location pages. Just, all the things that people have been talking about in SEO for years, they still matter, but they're kind of assumed. So just have good on-page SEO. It's not the focus here, but it's important. It matters. If your website is not optimized and lacks local content, it will hurt your maps. Again, off page, again, this is just links. We've talked a lot about links. I'm not going to focus on that too much. Writing simple blog posts is not enough. This is talking about a new authority signal generation, but it's not really new. I would say this differently, but one thing that we've found to be very helpful for our customers, and one thing we recommend looking at, is press releases. Now, press releases, they're a little, they have to go through a review process, they have to be approved, but when you can do press releases that talk about your business, maybe you've been in business for 10 years, hey, it's our 10th anniversary, hey, here's a coupon. Any reason you come up with to do a press release and get a link to your Google Business Profile, get a link to your website. Maybe some of these aggregators offer maps, can be optimized for local SEO. These are fantastic because you get a blast of local links, and even links outside your area, depending on the aggregator you're using, from high relevancy local sites. So that's kind of the hack or the tip for the day. Think about how you can do press releases, because they do a couple things for you. It does the local link building. when you put your name on it and your business, because it's showing up on like NBC and CBS, granted they're local affiliates, but whatever, it's still, Google still views them that way. It gives you authority. It gives you expertise. It gives you trust. These are Google code words for things they look for. And so when you get press releases out there about your business, it's sending strong expertise, authority, trust signals to Google, which makes your site rank better, which makes your maps rank better. So we try to use press releases for our customers in creative ways to the extent that we can, because we do see it having an impact. And so that's what this is talking about. Again, there's a replay. I don't want to read through all this stuff and bore you to tears. But press releases done right can do wonders for your website and your maps. Okay. This is, just kind of a neat little thing. I don't remember where we pulled this from, but it's the SEO periodic table. Again, if you want to rewatch the presentation and pause it here and read this, I'll do it, but there's nothing actionable here I want to talk about. I'll talk briefly about page quality rating. Again, this is more on-page stuff, and it is related to the press releases and the, expertise, authority, trust. You want your website to not be boring, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Press boring is not the word, but you want to talk about yourself on your website in appropriate ways. When people go to your website, they want to see you. They want to see your team. They want to see your trucks. When they click on About Us, they want to learn about you. They want to know you're an expert. They want to know you're an authority. They want to know they can trust you. That's what it's about. So for the user, for the searcher, for the potential customer, they want to see you and know you're a real person. They want to know you're just not some fly-by-night operator. So put a picture of yourself. Put a picture of your truck. Put a picture of yourself next to your truck. Put a picture of your technicians, whatever, it doesn't matter. Get some people on there that are real. Okay. People recognize stock photos now, not a good look. They don't like it. And then on the About Us, talk about your expertise, talk about your authority, talk about yourself. People go check that stuff out and it matters. Okay. Another question here, if we're approved for Google Guarantee, will we have the same number of reviews as our Google Map? I believe so. I believe that's where they pull it from. I'd have to check with Joe, or not Joe, Josh, but I believe those numbers correspond. Yes, they're not separate, in other words. Briefly, special local SEO ranking factors. Proximity is very important. So again, we talked about this. Relevance, again, this goes to having the local content, the local links, thing like that. Prominence, that's where things like these press releases, even some of these local links, Chamber of Commerce, scholarships, all this stuff combines to give you proximity, relevance, and prominence, which helps you show better in maps. And if you think about companies that do this, that have been around a long time, if you check their geogrids, typically they got strong maps, and there's no coincidence there. It's pretty straightforward how this stuff works. So here's a little checklist. You can kind of come back in and pause it, but it's just what we talked about, and I think a lot of this is already known. Get your Google Business Profile right. Get your website optimized correctly. Get new content out there, especially on your Google Business Profile, especially on your website, with local content, local relevant content. And then do some press releases, do some local relevant press releases to kind of just get a blast of authority. It works really well. So reached kind of the end of what I want to talk about here today. If you'd like us to look at your local market and see what's going on there, we do this. These are our sales calls. We want them to be valuable and a good use of your time. So we'll look at your market. We'll look at what's going on in Google Ads. We'll look at your GeoGrids, your competitors, how organic rankings are, how reviews are. We pull this together and we just talk through it with you and see if these are things that we can help you with. And then we show you what our prices are for helping you with these things. We got a couple different packages. So if that's interesting to you, just go to garagemarketers.com/apply now. Set up a call with Jason and he'll go through that stuff with you. So think about any takeaways. What did you learn? If you have any other questions, drop them in the chat now. If you guys have been great with questions today, really appreciate that. Drop them in the chat. as I wrap through the last couple slides here, and I'll answer them before we go. Again, if you want to talk, you can put in the comments, but really just go to apply now or reply to an email. We'll get you scheduled. If you want to see your GeoGrid, you can go to garagedoormarketers.com and just scroll down the page, or you can go to garagedoormarketers.com/# Google-Maps. That's an anchor link. And so if you just go to that, it'll navigate you right to it, pop your information in, boom, and you'll get emailed to GeoGrid. And that's really it. So give you one more second. I think we've answered, or one more question came in. Give us a call. Go to apply now, schedule a call with us, and I'll answer the last question here. Can we share reviews between existing location and new locations? No. So when you leave a review, it's for a specific location. And so if you open a new location, you're going to want a dedicated review sequence for that location. Now, you could have someone leave your review on a location that isn't technically the one that helped them. I don't think most people look that closely at it. But you will need review campaigns, review processes for each one of your locations. You can't shuffle reviews between them. That won't work. All right. Well, that's the end. Thanks for all the questions. It's been great. If you have any other questions, just reply to the emails. There will be a replay that goes out probably tomorrow. And we'd love to take your questions. And thank you for attending. We'll have another webinar next month. We will email you about it. I don't know what the topic is yet, but I will make it worth your time. Thanks, everybody. This concludes our presentation.